Great. Lisa.
Yeah, hello everybody and welcome to our presentation of legalization of cannabis, a game changer for the whole world industry in Europe or coming from Europe. We are representing today the Branchenverband Cannabiswirtschaft e.V. We are the biggest industry representation from Germany, representing the entire cannabis industry. My name is Lisa Katharina Haag. I'm founder and CEO of MJ Universe GmbH. We are a strategic consultancy. I'm also operating as a publisher, the B2B portal CrowdInvest.de that some of you may know. I have a German economics degree. I'm a Diplom-Betriebswirtin and I have a Bachelor of Business. And I'm part of the board of the BVCW and also the department coordinator for the area cannabinoids.
Yes, and my name is Benjamin Patock. In my main gig, I work for a company called Boveda. We're a producer of the world's leading two-way humidity control that you just put in wherever flower is present, basically. Also serve on the board of the German Cannabis Industry Association and also coordinate a working group which is entitled, as you see here, Technology, Commerce and Services. So commerce, very interesting for the upcoming cannabis legalization. So this is what I want to talk about today.
Yeah, so basically we'll start off with a little status quo to give you an insight on where we're standing at the moment in Germany. Then we'll go into why industry representation is such important at this moment. Then we'll go into why we should legalize now and why it is really an urgent matter actually. We'll have a look at some future scenarios that will be coming and we will talk about some key issues that we've also presented in a position white paper for the Industry Association. And of course, then we'll talk about the impact that cannabis legalization will have in Germany and beyond. So basically, we just wanted to give you a quick overview of the timeline. I mean, this is very narrowed down. There have been way more events. But basically what we can say, from 2017 onwards, we saw a change. We had the legalization of cannabis as a medicine in Germany. The first tender was running. Then it had to be repeated. The second tender was running in 2018. Finally, in 2019, the 3 winners have been awarded. On another note, like in the CBD area, there have been these changes in novel food, that cannabinoids have been mentioned as a novel food, but all these topics are independent of legalization. And then here in 2021, after the federal elections, the coalition announced that we will have cannabis reform in Germany. And just recently, the government announced that there will be 1 million in funding for harm reduction and youth protection. And we are expecting to have a proposal for the law by the end of the summer break, which is in September, roughly.
Yes, so let's just talk about the legislative process in Germany, just real briefly, so you get an understanding of where we are and what lies ahead, basically, right? So right now, and as we speak actually now, there are hearings in the administration, in the leading administration, which is the Federal Health Agency. So they hold stakeholder hearings in order to get input to draft what is a proposal for a law, okay? So this proposal, once it's been finalized, will go into the first chamber of our legislation, the Bundestag, the parliament, if you so will, where the existing governing coalition has a majority. The process is that it won't hit the floor directly, but it will go into committees. So this is the Health Committee, where all the parties that are in the parliament will discuss the matter, and everybody will try to find an arrangement how that works. And then, as I said, this will be voted in the first chamber, the Bundestag, but being a federal republic, there's a second chamber which represents the federal states, a little bit like in the United States of America, familiar with this. So this is all the different states have a seat in the Federal Council, the Bundesrat, and they can oppose a law, basically. And this is interesting because if you look at the next graphic and you look at all the black and gray, this is Bavaria, which is very black as well. So, so wherever you see a black dot, this is a conservative party that's part of the state government. Okay, and the conservatives are strongly opposing cannabis legalization so far. So, and as of now, if you would do the counting and everything, you'll see there's no majority, voting majority in the second chamber right now as far as cannabis legalization goes. We will have some elections coming up. Again, Bavaria can take that out. That will stay black for a very long time. So, but apart from this, so there is a scenario, and we will talk about different scenarios in a short time, where there could be a standoff really between the first and second chamber. And this is why political work is even more important than ever.
So let's have a little bit look also, because we're talking about general Germany in the context of the European Union and the Europäische Wirtschaftszone. So this is also very interesting, because each and every country that is surrounding us, and we ourselves, have different rules and regulations. So in Denmark, for example, we know there is Christiania, which is only tolerated, for example, otherwise strictly. To take it? Benny, can you just quickly take over?
Yes. Well, I enjoy it, actually. It's kind of funny. No, that aside. So we have, as you know, there are different movements being brought forward on the European levels. Where in between, with the spectrum being of tolerated, like in Christiania, you have some that's part legalized, like in the Netherlands, if you want to.
Or in Luxembourg, where they announced home growing only. In Switzerland, number 4, we, for example, have a pilot program and a change in narcotic laws already. We have the Spanish situation with the cannabis social clubs, which are also only tolerated. In Portugal, there's only decriminalization. There is a tendency to regulate cannabis in Portugal, but they have some issues with forming a government. In Malta, we have home growing and cannabis social clubs allowed. In Austria, for example, we have THC clones. You can buy them, but you cannot allow them to flower. So we just wanted to show you how diverse the ecosystem and heterogeneous policies are across Europe.
Yes, they have a lot of ornamental cannabis plants in Austria, interestingly. Very green living rooms.
So in general, we're talking about the biggest trade barrier that we have in the cannabis industry is the status of cannabis as a narcotic. So we have to look at 3 levels in this. First, the international drug policy level. How can Germany legalize cannabis for adult use and not be in breach of international policy? There will definitely be some interesting presentations on that coming up also throughout the next 2 days. Then we have the level of European drug policy. The European Union is a trade union. There are no borders de facto, but if we implement cannabis, there will be some challenges, and also we need to consider how can Germany legalize cannabis for adult use without breaching the sovereignty within the European Union. And also we have to ask ourselves what rules from within the European Union will apply. And then we have on a national level, where we are very much organized into states, how can Germany legalize cannabis for adult use without creating a patchwork of rules and regulations across federal states, similar to medical cannabis importation, for example, where in every state there's a different regulation. And another big question that we have on this level is how does reform impact existing cannabis branches, for example, the limitations in industrial hemp, in patient access, CBD technology, and so on.
Yes, and this shows, again, why it is important to do political work as a cannabis industry. Okay, it's very important. We see in the legislative process, and and right now there's stakeholder discussions happening. As I said, they're happening now, today, in this minute. And it's very important to actually transcend the cannabis knowledge, if you will, into the policy-making process, right? As important as it is for us to share the knowledge of the policy-making process with the cannabis industry. At the same time, you have to be aware that not everybody in Germany is pro-legalization. There are other very powerful industry groups, alcohol being one of them. I mean, legal drinking age for beer in Germany is 16. Can you imagine how good your lobbying must be to keep that up in times like these? You know, just think about it. And other as well, the pharmaceutical industry, everything that's around addiction medicine, police. So these are all very powerful interest groups that are anti-legalization. Okay, so, and they will have also a hearing in that they will also have a voice in these stakeholder hearings that we're seeing right now, obviously. But also within the industry, so it's a young industry. It's a very heterogen, whatever that is in English. Thank you. So it's a very fragmented industry, and so we need to speak with one voice at the end of the day, really. And also, as in regards to the public, we have to show as a cannabis industry that we are legit business people, right? We're not just some stoners who are trying to get your kids to smoke cannabis. No, we have legit business proposals and we have legit businesses. And even in other countries, think about California, this is still a stigma. You know, and in Germany it's the same. So this is why it is very important to be here and to join forces.
Yeah, because as we showed, cannabis industry, even in Germany, is still very much fragmented and at an early development stage. Many of these decisions that will impact our operations are yet to be taken. And also, as we said, there's an ongoing need for professionalism and reputable industry representation using one voice. So this is why we founded the BVCW in 2019, because that was a big part that was missing.
Yes, and this is the way the BVCW is a Branchenverband der Cannabiswirtschaft, the German Cannabis Industry Association, is set up. At the core, there's a society. So you can become a member of that society with voting rights and everything. And we're organized in 5 working groups. One is industrial hemp and nutrition. So because we are trying to really represent the whole cannabis industry. So not just recreational cannabis, but also hemp, also the medicinal cannabis industry, which will probably move away from being cannabis flower, right? We'll look into APIs and prescriptions and so on and so on. CBD as a big part of the market already. Adult use regulations, of course, this is going to be a big part of our work. But then again, everything that's ancillary, technologies, services, law firms, consultants. We have companies that are doing like weight management systems, you know, how to weight and package cannabis flower, lighting technology, and so on. So this is the core as a society where you can become a member and execute the voting. We have a service association, if you so will, that will do the lobbying work for us, for the society, and we have a board, we have council, like a quality council, scientific council that would consult basically on our activities.
Yeah, some milestones and achievement that we've had. Meanwhile, we have over 60 members across branches. We have a range of quality guidelines and self-declarations that we came up with. We have a series of publications, the BVCW elements. They have different focus areas and topics, and we're continuously adding to those. Just recently, one with harm reduction, and one also to avoid the mistakes of other countries that they made during legalization processes. We are very active in PR and media. We are engaged with a range of local and federal politicians and had many appointments there. And also we had one official meeting with the drug commissioner and are also actively involved in the expert commissions, particular in the supply chain one. Why do we have drug policy laws? Our drug policy laws are there to protect our citizens. In the current situation, we don't see that the citizens are protected anymore. On the one hand, you have this topic with synthetically enhanced cannabis. I don't want to call it synthetic cannabinoids because for me that's something completely different. It's research chemicals that are sprayed on the products, but also all kinds of other things. So you see here, these are some self-reported data from users. So you can see here a lot of these are synthetic cannabinoids, but also other things like sugars, and definitely something you shouldn't put in your lungs. Then we also see the BKA statistic. This is our police statistic in Germany. Over 200,000 crimes have been committed, whereas the majority of these are consumption crimes. Yeah, so like 90% of these 200,000 are not drug dealers or anything, it's consumers. So all of these crimes are then hopefully gonna be legalized. And also we see that everybody is discussing, the harm of cannabis. Cannabis is consumed in Europe, throughout the globe, and we can see that it is the second most consumed drug, according to the European Drug Commission, where they do a survey regularly, an online survey on substance consumption prevalence.
Yes, so basically the war on drugs is lost, right? So there's more and more consumptions. The entry age is getting younger and younger. So, and this is now with the tipping point being that something that has been brought up in the media with the, like synthetic cannabinoids and other like pesticides that are on the black market, that calls for regulation of the market that is now unregulated because the illicit market is not regulated. So if we look at what different scenarios will look like. And so if you do the math on the numbers, don't look too closely because we're a little bit over 100 there. But you see there's one favorite down there. That's the message. So there are different scenarios in this, and we talked about it. One scenario is still that legalization could fall. It could fail. As opposed to the second chamber with the conservative majority that there's there. So it's still very important that if you are a cannabis company in Germany today, you go to your local state governments and the representatives and you talk to them. Show them that you are legit business with business interests. It's very important, and we can help you in doing that, but you still have to do it nevertheless. The second scenario is like we've seen in Luxembourg and Malta to allow home growing only, which will not happen. We are looking really in Germany, and this has been very made clear by the Federal Drug Commissioner, we are looking forward to legalizing the entire value chain. That includes retail, because we want to have a quality control towards the end, really to the final consumer. There's a third scenario that's being discussed, and that being that the point of retail would be pharmacies only. We don't think that this is a good scenario, and we don't think it's going to happen. We believe that pharmacies should be also allowed to be a licensed cannabis retail. But the most likely scenario, and this is what the feedback that we also get from politicians, is an open market where we have licensed dealers and licensed retails, licensed supply chain. Maybe we even have licensed consumption facilities. We'll see about that. And this is probably going to happen.
I mean, all of you potentially have many questions, but at the moment we all have to be patient and have to wait a little bit, because we don't know what will be local or geographic limitations. We don't know at this point what the regulatory and operational requirements will be, what taxation will look like, what products will be allowed, what licensing will look like, what markets, how will the market be supplied with product, will cannabis be cultivated in Germany, and so on and so forth. So all these kind of questions are not answered yet. But this makes cannabis lobby work the more important, because we need to be there to at least provide our expert insight, so not any stupid decisions are taken and we get the scenario served, and then we are presented with the reality of the fact, but we were not there to really lobby for reform and to have operatable, because in the end we are the ones who have to operate the system, and it is very, very important that we are there now.
Yes, so, and if we look at the process or the most important steps towards legalization, we call it the steps towards a cannabis agenda. In Germany, we love agendas, right? Agenda 2020 and so on. So we have a steps towards a cannabis agenda, and we will just go through the steps just as we follow, basically. And the first important step is a question, and this is, where will the product come from? Because in a world with a ratified single convention on narcotic drug, there is no international trade for drugs, for illicit drugs. And cannabis still is, according to that convention, an illicit drug. So I know that there's a lot of interpretations that are floating, and some countries have chosen one way or the other, like Malta and so on. But the interesting point is that, what will Germany do? Because Germany, A, is a conservative country, and B, is very aware of their leading role in Europe for sure, right? So they have to make this right, and this is very clear in discussions that we were having with political leadership, is that they want to make this right. And they want to make this so that it will sustain not only their term, because there will be the next election, but also will sustain within Europe. So maybe it could become something that would grow bigger than Germany. So, but we have to be aware that, like when we talk to other associations like the Cannabis Council of Canada, everybody right now thinks that there won't be imports in the beginning, right? For the pending legal matters, we are advocating for it. We are advocating for the German government to come forward to talk and to act against the the Narcotic Convention on the UN level. But this is a lengthy process. So make sure in the beginning that there has to be domestic cultivation. And we as an industry, we need to have access, and it cannot be too hard if we want to scale from 0 to what should be 50 tons a year, right? So you switch on legalization, people want 50 tons overnight. So where does it come from? So the access to the value chain has to be not as restrictive, otherwise we won't be able to fulfill the demand, and we will leave a lot of the consumers to the black market, illicit market, sorry. And Germany is expected to play that leading role, right? So we will look at how do we get cannabis cultivation in Germany. We'll probably have, if we want to scale quickly, we'll probably have a look into greenhouse, maybe even outdoor. Knowing that the market in other more mature regulations is going in another direction, so it's more towards indoor because you have a better controlled quality. But nevertheless, if you need to scale quicker, you need to have the options at least and let the market regulate it.
The second step is the process of establishing the market. One big issue that we have, and that is also a requirement by the government, that they said they will do some data evaluation. One issue that we see there is that there is no comparable data to that. So what we are supporting is the immediate creation of comparable data for that through pilot programs. As an association, we are open towards home cultivation under a given legal and practical framework. And we also advocate for prompt decriminalization, which will most likely not happen.
Yes, but it would be very important, obviously, because we also need people to work. Right? And if you have been convicted for cannabis consumption before, you're not allowed to work in the cannabis industry, it would be a shame, right? So, third, very important, and this is a big separator from the illicit market, is the product characteristic and quality. So very importantly, what has to happen, in our opinion, is that because we don't want novel food, right? And we don't want GMP. Most of us don't. We have different voices within the association as well. Usually, all the companies who want GMP are the ones who already are GMP, because it's a very steep investment of time and other resources. But I think key is that we got to have a different legal entity, not entity, but a different legal matter, just if like tobacco and alcohol. Right, so these are different legal matters, and cannabis has to be one of them. Cannabis is not a food. Cannabis is not a medicinal drug. It can be, but not for recreational usage. So, and we got to draft a regulation that really takes into account what the cannabis plant is. Right, so if you have quality criteria, they're very strict because it's a natural product, so we have variations. So this should be possible. Or like, because I work for Boveda, right? So in the medicinal world, we have this 10% loss on drying, which is from what we learned in other markets. It's just too dry. You know, the patients today are rehydrating their cannabis because they don't like it. So the regulation here does not meet with what the patient wants. Okay, it's just taken from another framework. And of course, we want something that's looking beyond the German borders, because there are initiatives like at ASTM where you have interdisciplinary teams that are working on standards, because we are going to need standards if we want to have a globalized cannabis industry.
Then another important pillar from our association is harm reduction, preventive measure and harm reduction. We see it on the one level that it starts with educating the population. This is very important through public campaign, through also to create acceptance within the population. We have 3 groups within our population in Germany that are against legalization. Actually, it's the women, 60 plus voters, and conservative voters. So we need to find also some talking points that can convince them that cannabis legalization is the best option that we have. Another very important part is youth protection. Of course, we want to protect and help, but the good thing is about if we regulate is there will be more offers for youth protection as well as harm reduction. Consumer protection is very important, and also harm reduction itself, like if somebody has negative consumption patterns, for example, and also things like labeling, psychoactive labels, pictograms, in-store consulting, and so on and so forth. So this is a very essential part of the harm reduction. But the question is, what part will be part of the industry? And we are most likely the ones who will be executing those kind of things in the sales process. But in the end, there will be other people who are doing the actual harm reduction, and we have great institutions throughout Germany who have been doing this for ages.
Yes, and this is also a very important point, because there are voices right now that are calling for an entry age of 25, right? Or 21 at some point. So is that a good regulation or bad regulation? You ask yourself. And not just us because we want to sell more cannabis, but I mean, do you want to leave the 18 to 25 or 18 to 21-year-olds to the illicit market? Because they're not going to stop. They're not stopping now, right? So this is the idea is that the cannabis industry, we as cannabis industry in Germany, we're not against regulation, but it has to make sense, okay? But at the same time, we cannot be the watchdog for what is proper consumption. That's not our role. And we have to advocate for this. It's very important. And then, of course, very important question, not everybody likes this, but at the end of the day, if you want to beat the illicit market, it comes down to price, right? And this is why we have a lot of voices that don't like GMP, because it's a very expensive process and it's going to make the product more expensive. And we have to be competitive with the illicit market in order to reduce it. Very simple. This is what we have seen in California and other regulatory regimes, right? If you make the process hard and expensive, the black market will continue to flourish. So and taxes play an important part of this, obviously, not just licenses, but if we look at the taxes, what we are proposing is a taxation that's based on THC levels, all right? Very simple. Because it also has the effect that it makes high THC potent products more expensive, so it could lead to a consumption pattern that would favor products that are less expensive, so to say, have a more favorable price, and these would have lower THC. We lobby, and this is very important, and I'm looking at you, Bavaria, again, for federal unified criteria, right? So we cannot have different regulation throughout Germany where in one state it's more favorable than the other. We don't want to have that. Everybody should have the same capabilities of accessing this market. And we as an association, we also lobby and advocate against, and these are on the table, right? Against possession quantity. So how much can you have at home? What's the THC limit in these products? So these things are all on the table. So we are trying to work against that, because we feel that if you want to, again, fight the black market, the illicit market, and you see that there's a big trend towards high THC products, you can't just tell them that you can't have them. Then they're going to get them from somebody else. Okay, that's what hasn't been working over the last 50 years.
The sixth pillar is that we are asking for a clear distinction and reinforcement of other branches. For the medical market, for example, we have this ongoing discussion with the reimbursement, still very high barriers. What will happen if we have cannabis openly sold in the stores, but still we have very high access barriers for patients? Also, we are lobbying for reducing bureaucratic hurdles in that regard and for a harmonization across Germany, also to find more harmonized rules. Also in hemp markets, the status of cannabis as a drug is the highest trade barrier that we have. So one of the things we're asking here is to remove hemp from the Narcotics Act, also to enable more local production by farmers, and also one of the important lobby topics that we have is THC thresholds and limits.
And again, we talked about it. So Germany will be a very important market to look at, and the regulation of Germany will have effects that they will ripple much further than you would think at this point. Obviously, other countries are looking at Germany right now. How will they do it? How will the Germans, the conservative Germans, if they regulate it, we can do it as well. And maybe we can use it as a cookie cutter. We'll see. So, and the German government is well aware of that role, and they will try to make it. But also, if you look at the medicinal place, when medicinal cannabis has been legalized, so to say, in Europe or in Germany, how many other countries have jumped up and created production? Denmark is one of them, Portugal, and you look abroad, and this will have the same effect. We feel this is going to have the same effect when the recreational market or the full adult use market will be in effect. And because all projections I've seen, the full adult use market exceeds the medicinal market as far as cannabis goes, right? So you will have the same there, right there. And then, but very importantly, we can stress it, what will be with the International Drug Convention? This is a very, very important role, because this is still the biggest roadblock that we see in international trade as of today.
We also see cannabis as a catalyst for certain things. One thing that we should consider, and where cannabis can actually be a role model for how digitalization improves processes, for example, to accelerate and facilitate. There could be possibilities for licensing, for home growing, like in Thailand, for example, they are doing everything digitally with home growing. Amnesty is also something. In Canada, for example, amnesty is also via an online form, and you can hand in your application for amnesty, and it is very digital and very unbureaucratic, and this is something that we should also definitely think about. Then one of the most important accelerators is how does changing cannabis policy affect other areas of drug policy? What will happen there? What will happen with alcohol? Will alcohol age increase to 18? There have been these calls already, for example, just recently from the Association of the Psychotherapists, and also tobacco, alcohol regulations, how will this be impacted? And in general, we are in an economic recession. We just went through we are still full on in the COVID pandemic. We have the war in Ukraine raging. So what can we do to also compensate some of this? For example, we have over 100,000 jobs lost in German hospitality. So this is definitely, the cannabis industry is a huge opportunity to create economic prosperity again, and to, even if we are in an economic recession, have a new industry coming up with full-on power. And one of the things that we definitely need to talk is, because we want to decide everything about the consumer. That is not what is consumer maturity and literacy. What we should be interested as an industry is to create a regulation of the cannabis market that enables health protecting and socially acceptable, has good harm reduction criteria, establishes tailored intervention, which means, like, depending where you are and how much you need help, you get the appropriate help, that it's age appropriate, and that there is consumption literacy, Konsummündigkeit, that everybody can take or has the capacity to make a decision, should I consume cannabis or maybe not? And these are also some things that are very important in that regard. What is education? What is advertisement? What will be compulsory requirements? What are the voluntary initiatives that we as service providers, as operators, add on top to educate our consumers?
Yes, for instance, one very interesting industry, because everybody talks about tobacco and alcohol, but gambling is actually very interesting in how gambling is regulated in Germany. For instance, there's if you want to Google it, the Oasis system is in place where you can sign yourself to a list where, and then you can ban yourself from retail in that case, or accessing a gambling facility at the end of the day, or if you have like a court rule said you're not that you shouldn't do it, so you can be blocked from that process if you want to, let's say if it's part of your healing and so on, right? But these are all open matters, and we're happy to discuss more with you. If you this code will get you to our LinkedIn page. We will stand here outside at a little table if you want to come talk to us. If you want to forge the German industry policy, we're happy to talk to you. We're happy to support you and your business. This is what we do. Also, if you want to join the network of our companies that are already in the association, right? But you have to come forward. This is a call. You have to do it. Because we're also part of this industry. We're not lobbyists. We're part of this industry. So we want to have favorable outcome of this big chance and this unique chance to do something right. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.